Alright, hot take. The Lakers are not having a bad offseason. I know the narratives like to make it seem like they are and that they have done absolutely nothing up until this point. I know we don't absolutely love Rob Pelinka and what he's done over the past few years, but I really don't think they're having a bad offseason. In fact, it might be a little bit underrated so far. Now, let me be clear about this, I don't think they should be done and that they have not had a perfect offseason yet. If they would enter the season with this team, I would be disappointed. But with what they have done so far and the remaining assets they have to work with, I think they've actually done a pretty good job and are in a great position moving forward if they execute it and finish it correctly. So with that being said here, we're going to talk about what they have done so far, both the good and the bad with it, how they can change the narrative surrounding their current offseason and make it be viewed a whole lot better, even in the eyes of casual fans, how they should finish their offseason and what they should do or likely will do going forward. And without further ado here, let's dive right into it. So beginning with the bad, or I guess kind of the bad, this would have to be a Dorian Finney-Smith, which keep in mind kind of had happened for them to make further moves after that point. If you want to talk about a bad subtraction from their team, simply from a fit and chemistry and relationship standpoint, then you could mention Dorian Finney-Smith. After all, he was kind of their only true 3-and-D wing. Pointing to their current team now, you really can't point to one. Neither with a guy like Rui Hachimura, lacking the defensive part of a true 3-and-D wing or a true two-way player for that fact. Maybe eventually with Jake LaRavia, a recent addition for their team, but also not a reliable option quite yet. Maybe in the future with a guy like Adu Thero. Maybe hopefully with Dalton Connect, but again, they don't really have a true 3-and-D wing after losing Dorian Finney-Smith. Then for the chemistry and team continuity portion, that would have been helpful with Luka Doncic in year number 2. Obviously, they played together and just got reunited again in Los Angeles after playing for half a decade back in Dallas, and they're obviously very good friends too. So from that standpoint, losing Finney-Smith wasn't a great thing for their team, but it did kind of have to happen, and we'll talk more about why in a bit here. But then moving on from the bad, as I think that's kind of the only bad thing you can point to, we'll talk about the good and what they have done that I think has been good for their team. Beginning with the NBA draft year, kind of a forgotten part at this point and kind of an overlooked portion for their team, but I actually think they did pretty good. Initially only having the 55th overall draft pick, trading up from 55 to 45th, then trading up again from 45th to 36th, without trading a future second round draft pick, only trading cash to get to that point, and that's moving up 19 draft picks simply by trading cash and no real trade asset along with it. So purely from that standpoint and their ability to do that, I think that's a pretty good thing for their team. Then they followed it up with drafting Adu Thero, who wasn't I guess on my list of draft picks for their team and I didn't think they would draft him, but after thinking more about it and especially after losing Finney-Smith, it was not a terrible thing for their team. I mean, replacing a wing with a young defensive-minded athletic wing with Adu Thero, with plenty of upside and hopefully can eventually become a true 3-and-D option, that's not a bad thing for their team. Throughout college, he averaged during his final season, averaging 15 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, nearly 2 steals per game, and only 27 minutes per game, shooting a very impressive 45% from the field, an underwhelming 25% from 3, but does have some upside in that regard. And again, simply having the foresight to draft a wing player, a defensive-minded wing player, knowing that they might lose Dorian Finney-Smith, which at that time didn't feel very likely, but obviously did end up happening for their team. It was a pretty darn good move for their team in hindsight. Whether you're talking about trading up from 55th to 36th, drafting Adu Thero, then getting a defensive-minded athletic wing for their rotation, and not to mention for their future with Luka Doncic, I think that was a pretty good start for them. And then even apart from Adu Thero, I like the addition of Eric Dixon via two-way contract, which although there might be some conflict with as he may have not officially signed that contract quite yet, is currently dealing with an injury, but pointing to the all-time leading scorer at Villanova University, a very talented offensive big that's roughly 6'8", 6'9", weighing 260 pounds, I think that's a pretty good player to pick up via two-way contract, and if he can get back on the court, if he can get healthy and transfer a little bit of that college ability and scoring ability to the NBA level, that could be a really solid addition for their team. So between Adu Thero, between Eric Dixon, and simply what they did on draft day, I think that was a pretty good start for their team. But then moving toward free agency and what they did immediately with it, that was signing Jake LaRavia. Again, maybe not the most appreciated or popular thing for their team to do, but looking back on it, I think it gets better with each passing day and each passing week. Obviously losing Dorian Finney-Smith, getting another wing player here to kind of help fill the void of him, more so offensively and more so with the catch and shoot 3-point shooting ability, which Jake LaRavia does have in his bag, coming off a season of shooting 42.3% from beyond the arc, taking 2.2 of them per game in 20 minutes per game, translating to roughly 4 of them per 36 minutes, and I think he does have upside here on defense. Isn't the most reliable defensive option quite yet, coming off a plus 1.1 defensive BPM rating, having some very good moments, and does have the ability and at least potential to be able to guard and switch 2 through 4 on the court. So don't mind that, and if we're talking about trying to replace Dorian Finney-Smith, which again they had the foresight to try and do here, I like the addition of both Adu Thero and Jake LaRavia. And not to mention for their future timeline with Luka Doncic, Jake LaRavia fits into that as well, only being 23 and having a ton of untapped potential. Then after that point, making their newest and arguably most important addition yet, filling their void at center and their long-awaited void at center with DeAndre Ayton. And yes, I guess you can argue they got a bit lucky here with him getting the contract buyout that nobody really saw coming, then picking their team thereafter from a long list of teams that apparently wanted him. I guess you can argue they got a bit lucky. But from the fact that they're the best fit for him by far in my opinion, offering him the most playing time, the best fit, obviously with plenty of playmakers around him, Luka Doncic, LeBron, Austin Reeves, maybe you've heard of them, the best long-term timeline for him, and so on and so forth, I think it made a lot of sense for both parties here. And well, you really can't argue against it, given the center market and what was left apart from DeAndre Ayton at that point, there was no better option. And from the fact that they're getting a 26-year-old center that pretty much offers everything they need at center, everything from a good offensive fit to pair with Luka Doncic, a lob threat, good pick and roll partner, a guy with an extensive playoff background, playing in 45 playoff games up until this point, holding playoff averages of roughly 16 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game, 1 block per game, shooting 62.9% from the field and playing in an NBA Finals. Obviously a lot to like here with DeAndre Ayton, if he can get back to what he was back in Phoenix, if he becomes more committed on the court and simply buys into their team and their future direction going forward. This could be a great addition for their team for not only this season, but hopefully and maybe for 5 to 10 more after this one too, which would obviously be ideal for their team. And between the signings of DeAndre Ayton and Jake LaRavia, the draft pick and trading up to get Adu Thero, maybe even throwing in a good two-way contract with Eric Dixon, I think there's been a lot to like with the moves they made and the additions they've made to their team, even with the subtraction of Dorian Finney-Smith, which like I said did kind of have to happen. If they didn't let him walk, then they don't have the ability to sign both Jake LaRavia and or DeAndre Ayton. That freed up their full mid-level exception, which they put towards signing Jake LaRavia and DeAndre Ayton. So yes, it kind of did have to happen. I guess kind of a necessary subtraction to their team that eventually led to them filling two major holes in their team. One of which being the void at center, filled by DeAndre Ayton, and that's a big one for their team that they absolutely had to address, so kind of had to lose Dorian Finney-Smith to get DeAndre Ayton, which alone was worth it in my opinion. Then add in Jake LaRavia with it, a young potential 3-and-D wing that kind of can help replace Dorian Finney-Smith, both right now and then for the long-term future as well. I think it was worth it for their team. And well, you can point to that and say, okay, great, that's pretty good, but it's not enough for their team and not enough for them to be a championship contender. And I would agree with you with that too. If that would be it, that wouldn't be enough, and it wouldn't be enough to call it a great or perfect offseason. Though I don't think they're done yet, and they definitely have enough assets to not be done yet too. Whether you're talking about their trade assets, having a 2031 future first round draft pick, that's tradable for them, 4 future first round draft pick swaps, coming in 2026, 2028, 2030, and 2032, a second round draft pick in 2032 that's tradable, and then for their assets via players and tradable contracts, obviously having Austin Reeves here, not a very likely player for them to trade, but does have plenty of trade value if they wanted to go that route. Then with a guy like Dalton Knecht, a former first round draft pick with plenty of upside yet, probably can net them the equivalent to a current late first round draft pick. Then with a guy like Rui Hachimura, has an expiring contract and only 27 and could be a fit for both a contending team or for a short-term rebuild team too. And then even for expiring contracts like Maxi Kleber, Gabe Vincent, and Shake Milton, simply for making the money work in a trade and helping to offload a salary from a different team if they're entering a rebuild. That's valuable for them too. So between all of that, they have plenty of trade assets left, whether you're talking about a big trade, a medium-sized trade, or even a couple of smaller trades. They have the ability to do it, and I think they will eventually do it too. Or then even for the free agent market and what they have left to offer here to a free agent, they do have part of their biannual exception, which they might be able to get the entirety of with a few calculated moves here. At the current moment, they only have 3.9 of the maximum 5.1 million amount to offer it if they would waive Shake Milton anyways. But if they would combine that with either another trade that they actually offload some salary with, whether that's a 2-for-1 trade or whatever it might be, they could get the full biannual back and then offer it to a free agent like maybe an Al Horford. I guess that could be an option, not a very likely option. Maybe a DeAnthony Melton, maybe a Gary Payton II, something like that, or maybe signing a player like that, trying to take them away from a rival contender like Golden State, for example. That could be an obvious benefit. Or maybe holding it and waiting until the post-trade deadline to buy out market. There can tend to be a few good free agents at that point, and maybe waiting to use it at that point and be a higher bidding team than what other teams can offer at that point. So no matter what way you want to look at it, whether you're talking about free agent assets, trade assets, the moves they've already made, and the moves they could still make, I think it's actually been a decent offseason for the Lakers with the potential to be a very, very good one if they finish up correctly with it. In my opinion, that would be trading for a 3-and-D wing, a true and reliable proven 3-and-D wing option. We've talked about this endlessly, so I won't continue to talk about it too long here, but maybe for a guy like Andrew Wiggins, maybe for a lesser and smaller trade target like a Matisse Thybulle, Ochai Agbaji, maybe Isaac Okoro. Simply a few examples here, but that's how I would look to finish it up. Doing that and then maybe signing one more free agent, maybe a DeAnthony Melton, maybe a Gary Payton II again, whatever it might be, simply adding more defensive mindset to their team, more athletic ability, and better fits and better off-ball fits that play defense around Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves. I think that would actually be a perfect offseason for their team, and it's not entirely unrealistic. In fact, it's pretty realistic if you ask me. And well, with all of that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the Lakers offseason so far, and what would you rate it? What do you think they have to do left, and how do they change the narrative about their current offseason? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.